Evening, folks. Thanks for coming in. I hope you're all keeping safe and hydrated and all that kind of stuff during the heat wave that seems just to have slammed Britain. Not that I'm complaining. But so tonight we are joined again by this young man, as we call Mr. Greyfriars. He was on about 2 weeks ago. We were covering Greyfriars actually with Mackenzie Tomb and Black Mausoleum. But tonight we're going to be chatting about the vault. So we get Mr. Greyfriars back. Mr. Jamie Cousteau. I don't want to call him Mr. I'll just say it's Jamie's back.
Absolutely, yeah. Just say Jamie's back. No special fucking thing here.
No, I think I think the first couple of shows we did, I called you Mr. But then formality goes down the toilet, doesn't it?
So,
that's Jamie, you know. He's sporting the glasses tonight. Not as handsome as what I am, but he's getting there. He's trying. He's making an effort.
Sore eyes. Hat and glasses, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, it's too warm for a hat. I could see they gave me a ball the other day because I didn't have a hat.
My head's shiny. That's what it is. My head gets shiny under the light like this, so I've got to put my hat on.
I think you see mine's as well burnt to hell. There's a wife in saying hello.
Aye. There's there.
So how are we doing, young man?
Right. Been a busy week. Ever since I got back, 2 weeks ago, I got back from London, and it's just been non-stop since then, really. I've done a few private tours, I've done a few tours, done a few things, and then I had the gig on Friday night at the Castle, the Callum Beattie gig, which was outstanding, and then I had a wedding yesterday. I was doing photos for my niece's wedding, so it's been pretty non-stop. I've been across, I think, more to Edinburgh this week than I have done in the last 2 years. So
you may as well just sleep in your office then.
Well, this week I would have, yeah. Hopefully this week will be a bit quieter. Catch up on paperwork and things like that, I think, yeah.
I meant to ask you actually the last time talking about your office. I meant to ask, have you still got that wallpaper up?
Yeah, it's still up, yeah. Yeah, it's still on the wall, yeah. Still hanging up well. No, there's not much else to do on that wall. Yeah. Even the light's still up as well, which I'm surprised about.
I'm impressed. I'm very impressed with that. It was me that wallpapered his office, by the way, folks. That's why I'm asking if it was still, upright or kind of, that way it comes after the corners and just.
That was 2020, was it not? There was lockdown, was it?
Well, I don't know. It's a few years back now, anyway.
It was lockdown. It was after the first lockdown. Yeah, it was after the first one, in between the two, because it was 2020 that I started doing the upgrade in the office and getting it all cleared out. Yeah, God, it's 7 years ago next year. It's mad.
Is that how long we've known you?
Well, it's 2006, isn't it? That'll be 6 years. Yeah.
Jesus, that's a long time. It feels just like yesterday. I need to say that because you're on.
That's it.
I feel so. Tonight as I say, the last show we did with Jamie, we were talking about Greyfriars and etc. But tonight we're going to be talking about the city under the city. The famous, I was going to say London. Why the hell was I going? It's because you say.
Because I said London. Didn't
it? Edinburgh Vaults. The Edinburgh Vaults date back a couple of 100 years at least. Jamie's the man with the facts and figures, but there's been a few stories appearing on Facebook, TikTok, whatever, about the vaults and stuff. And so, as we said with the Greyfriars show, all the stuff that's appearing, no offence to the people that are putting it up, but they're getting all their facts wrong. Do you know what I mean? And so I thought, well, I spoke to Jamie and thought, well, let's do one about the vaults. So Jamie's going to give us a rundown of the history of the vaults. So the floor's yours, young man.
Wicked. Yeah, I mean, it's not quite as bad as the graveyard, like I said. The vaults have not got as much history as the graveyard. But yeah, I mean, there is a lot of, I wouldn't say much lies spouted about the place, but there's a lot of misinformation, about the place. Usually from people either getting the vaults and Mary King's Close mixed up. Mary King's Close is obviously the other place, the part of the old street that's underground that's just off the Royal Mile. Mary King's Close doesn't go under the Royal Mile, it runs away from the Royal Mile, although you go into it from the Royal. It's all very confusing, but nobody lived in it underground. It was covered over, Mary King's, because we used the foundation, the bottom section of it, the foundations for the city chambers. that was built on top of it, or the Royal Exchange, it was known as when it was first built. You know, we always knew Mary King's Close and Allen's Close and Old Post Office Close was always there. You know, it was never a case that were lost because we used it as foundations. The city chambers had access to it for years before it was open to the public, you know. The vaults are different though, you know, the vaults are completely man-made. They were built for storage. They were basically workshops and storage rooms. They were built between 17... Well, the bridge itself, I mean, let's start with the bridge. The reason the bridge, South Bridge, was built was to basically span the gap of the Cowgate. We were extending the city out. At that point, you know, the early 1700s, Edinburgh was called the Athens of the North. We were leading the world in medicine, design, technology. A lot of people were coming to Edinburgh. The new town was being built, you know, and the new town was full of money. The old town was kind of decrepit and there was no money being spent. It had become a slum. The Cowgate had become a slum. You know, all the rickety old buildings and stuff and all the broken windows and just the uncleanliness. You know, all the waste would then flow down from the Royal Mile into the Cowgate or indeed into the Nor Loch. It was a slum. But instead of rejuvenating the area to put access to the south side of the city and where the University Quad was going to be, where, you know, Robert Adam was sort of done the design for the University Quad, instead of, you know, putting access from the newly built Cowgate, they could rejuvenate the area, make it like the new town. But that would take far too much money. The council went, you know what, what's cheaper? A bridge. Yeah, Emo. A bridge over the top of them. Basically a big bridge to span the gap. Like pretty much like North Bridge was. The North Bridge runs from the end of Princes Street or Waterloo Place across to the old town, the meet of the Tron, basically the junction of the Tron. And then South Bridge joins North Bridge. Two big bridges spanning the two valleys, either side of the Royal Mile. That's why South Bridge was built, to span the gap. It was designed and built as Edinburgh's first purposely built shopping street. You got to remember, Princes Street wasn't completed by that point, and the Royal Mile is not built to be a shopping street. It's naturally rock formation from glaciers, you know, carving the geology out. So it just so happened it was, you know, straight down. So they built shops on it. The street, the Royal Mile, as it stands, the geology of it was not designed originally as a street. Southbridge was, as is Princes Street. You know, they were built specifically for shopping streets. So that was the design of the South Bridge. It was built to be an extension of the High Street to span out the south side. We were opening up the south side of the city. So that was to span the gap from the Royal Mile to the south side where the University Quad was going to be. So, yeah, absolutely. City of the Dead. I just saw the question fire up there. We'll get on to the different sections. So the bridge. The bridge was built to span the gap. That was it. It's held up by 19 massive arches. It is a viaduct bridge. It's over 1,078 feet in length, and it's held up. If I get this, I'll try to get this. I don't know if you can see it properly. This is basically what the South Bridge looks like without the buildings covering the archways. You see the 19 arches. So the 19 arches are there. It's a viaduct bridge. The arches are up to 37 feet tall, and they are concealed behind the tenement buildings. Basically the straight line, you got a straight line, and the buildings go either side of it, go on the side, covering the arches, and they provide the shop fronts on bridge level. So you got bridge level, down to the Cowgate. That's it. And of course, you got the bridge running straight down here. The basically blocks on the side of it. The arches were always covered. There is some misconception and some lies out there saying that just over time the city built up around the bridge and then it became buried. And no, it didn't. It was designed for that. The whole thing behind the South Bridge was these vaults, these arches. So there was corridors ran down both sides before the tenements were built. The bridge itself, arches, was between 1785 and 1788. That's the big bridge with the big arches on display. That's the actual structure up. Amazing, because there was a fucking pothole in the Cowgate for over 6 years. You know, it was on the drain. Every time a car went over it, it was da-dink, 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 da-dink. 6 years it was there. And it took them, back then, just over 4 years to build this superstructure. Unbelievable. So, the bridge is only 55 foot from pavement to pavement. So if you were to put shops on the bridge as it was there, like this, it would be like this. It would be so narrow, you wouldn't be able to move down it. The whole point was to open up the city. So that's again why the tenements come in, covering the arches, coming up to bridge level, so your shops are either side of the road. that was then the support for the shops. The tenements went up. Basically, the arches were up by the 13th of August, 1788. Then the tenement buildings were the next stage to go up and cover the arches. Once there was corridors ran down both sides to access the vaults on different levels, because the big arches were then, floored up to 3 times. So the big arch, and then they're floored, and then access was put. It was like a zip design, different levels. There's 4 different levels on the gradient that goes up. So next idea was the tenements then went up, covering the arches, and that would then provide the shops. The last tenement was built in 1796. So in theory, the bridge, although you say it was 1785 to 1788, it was actually 1796 that the final tenement was built. So it was still ongoing. But you could, as a pedestrian walk, and traffic was opened in 1788 to cross the actual bridge. The story about the woman who opened the bridge across in a coffin, a horse-drawn coffin, was the first person to cross South Bridge. That was true. She was a judge's wife. She was meant to open it. She was the sort of highest political figure. But she passed away a week before she was meant to open the bridge. So they decided that in honour of her, she would be the first vehicle to cross the South Bridge, would be her coffin in a horse-drawn carriage, which it wasn't a good start. So, but yeah, the vaults were built. The vaults were concealed. Each shop up the top and at the bottom, they had allocated storage and workshops. They would then pay extra for the space, and that money would then go to the upkeep of the bridge. Great idea. Unfortunately, we're Scottish and we are tight as fuck, and we never waterproofed the structure when we built it. So it's leaked from day one. That's the problem. It leaks water. So the vaults are very dark, very damp. Then they become very slippy. You cannot keep stock in them, and you cannot work in them. So they were started to be abandoned as early as 1792, which is amazing, because remember, the last tenement wasn't built till 1796. So they were still building it, and there was people abandoning the vaults already.
Folk leaving it 4 years before it was completed.
Well, the shops were fine. I mean, they kept the shops, but they couldn't use the vaults. They were just absolutely useless. Not all of them leaked, but most of them did. As soon as the water comes on the top, it just seeps through, as it still does to this day in certain parts. But not all of them leaked. But the majority did, because they didn't use puddling clay, to mix it for the limestone mortar, and then it would stick in, waterproof, basically. Because it was too expensive.
I had a couple of lashes on last week. We were talking about all buildings and stuff and how they've withstood the test of time, and about the people that built them. You know, engineers, bricklayers, everybody involved. And when you think of the vaults, you know how big that whole area is. Width-wise, height-wise. And when you think of how the vaults were actually designed, put together, it's a kind of, a marvel of engineering. Because, you're talking about the late 1700s, so they didn't have the education system that, engineers have got these days. The people that laid the bricks, I mean, obviously you've got your architects and design. A lot of people say it was Thomas Hamilton or Robert Adam that designed South Bridge, which is false. The design for the bridge was opened up by the trustees of the bridge for the design to build it. Not to build it, but to design it, to be built. Obviously, Robert Adam didn't build stuff, he designed stuff, and people built it to his specifications. He wasn't, laying the fucking bricks himself. So he did put a sort of design in, but it was too expensive. So it was knocked back, which he wasn't best pleased about, because it's Robert Adam, and he was one of the best architect in the country at the time. And he was, he wasn't too pleased about it. The person who did build it was a guy called Robert Kay, who was the famous caricature in Edinburgh, which his first name escapes me. I should know this because he's buried in Greyfriars. He was famous Kay. It will come to me. But his brother was Robert Kay, and he designed it. He took Adam's design and he stripped it back, and that's what was built. So he was the architect of it. He designed it and built it, but the builder was Thomas Hamilton, who built the tenements. They had to be set tenements. They had to be a certain size, certain width, certain design. That was the only stipulation with the bridge, because it had to be symmetrical. They were going for complete symmetrical. So there was only 2 architects of the tenements, whereas it was Robert Kay that designed the South Bridge itself to what we see today. So you've got you've got the bridge, you've got the vaults, and as I say, just even thinking about the sheer scale of them, how they were built, designed, built, put together. They're still there to this day. The majority are still there to this day. And there's your Craig in saying hello.
Well, you got to remember the people who laid the bricks. They weren't educated, so to speak. Most of them were illiterate. They just followed plans. They just followed plans. That was their trade. They didn't have to read and write back then, which a lot of people couldn't. So it's amazing, and it's still standing. You got to remember as well, South Bridge was never built for hundreds of thousands of tons of steel every day. It was designed horse and cars. It was never. Mm-hmm. There is sometimes when you got the venue, our section of vaults is next to the Caves venue. There is sometimes if there's a club night on, when we're doing a tour through our section, you get boom, 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 and you can actually see the dust and the bricks move from the base. So it's amazing that it's still standing. And all that weight on it. It's one of the most busiest roads in the centre of Edinburgh, second to Princess Street. But South Bridge is, it's a main vein. The council could never, ever replace South Bridge.
No, they can't. I've been there, I don't know, thousands of times in trucks and vans, cars and stuff, and even looking at the structure of Selly, how did they do it? It makes you wonder how they actually went ahead and built it. But they were closed down. Is that right?
Eventually, it wasn't a case they were closed down. It was a case that they were eventually all abandoned because nobody wanted them. It started off with the businesses abandoning them because of the design back then. They were all connected still, But there was a lot of businesses at that point started taking them off the title deeds. They refused to pay for them because they couldn't use them. Quite rightly, it was like when the window tax came in. You get all these premises that have now got the bricked up windows. You're like, wonder why that window's bricked. Basically, the more windows you had, the more your house was taxed. So you would brick the windows up, going, well, it's not a window. I can't see through it. It's not a window. Which is, it was legally, they couldn't argue with that. So that's what they started doing. The business owners would start bricking up the entrances and they say, well, we can't access them. So we're not paying for them. We shouldn't pay for them. Mm-hmm. So they were taken off the title deeds. There was, again, a few of them, a lot of them that weren't leaking. They were kept. But because of the design, you could always access different areas and you could just walk down one of the 3 levels of corridors and that would access everybody else's vault. It was like a long corridor with the vaults on either side. So they were all accessed, It wasn't a case that they were that secure. You had to go through your building to get to your allocated vaults. Anybody could just walk along the corridors, so there was a security issue. But yeah, once they were sort of abandoned, people just refused to pay for them. So they became a kind of no man's land, really. So they couldn't physically shut them down. But over time, that's why, coming into 1800s, that's why the illegal trades then moved in. There was enough of them empty that they could just take over. Nobody would give a shit. It was effective because they were all together. And, anything that was illegal above ground, your prostitution, your drinking dens, opium dens, your gambling dens, nobody cared down there. The police didn't go in there. It was too dangerous. And, people came in, broke the law, left. They weren't a problem. It was an unwritten agreement. As long as the trouble stayed in there, out of sight, out of mind. Crime rates dropped in the early 1800s in Edinburgh.
It's a kind of perfect setup. You can still do what you do, but take it underground.
Yeah, and nobody would bat an eyelid. Nobody cared. They all had their own problems to worry about. So, but they kind of just done their own thing. And, there wasn't enough people breaking the law to fill the place. Absolutely not. But then, 1826, 1827, that's when Edinburgh took a huge influx of Irish and Highlanders coming down for various reasons, mainly agricultural and changes and stuff like that. So they needed to find work, and thousands embarked on Edinburgh, and there was no work for them, especially not in the old town. At that point, the Vagrant Act was in effect, so they weren't allowed to beg on the streets. If you were found begging and homeless on the streets, you'd be sent to hard labour, which was horrendous. So they needed a place to go, and word got around about the vaults under South Bridge, and that's when the problems really became apparent. Was the cholera, the cholera, the dysentery, the typhoid, the typhus. These people had nothing, absolutely nothing, but nobody was willing to help them.
Aye, so they were kind of just locked in, but that, they were kind of, disease was rife. They were stuck down there. They had nowhere else to go. No. And they didn't have any medical attention or nothing. So
no,
just ran rampant.
Well, that's why it became known as the Underground City, not because it looks like a city, unlike Mary King's Close that does. It's got the old street. It's clearly an old street. You know what I mean? It looks like part of an old city, and it is part of the old city from the 1600s. But the underground vaults, which again we've got to point out, they're not actually underground. At no point are you under the Cowgate level, street level. You're in between. But the reason behind that is because there was high society on the bridge. That was society, you know, and down was a slum in the Cowgate. So to them, it was underground, you know. So that's why they called it the underground city, although it's not actually technically underground. But that's why, because they were trading amongst each other. They were you know, trading amongst each other. They could communicate. A lot of people out in the streets of Edinburgh, and that we didn't understand them because they spoke Gaelic and Gaelic, you know, not Scots. So, but they could communicate with each other. So yeah, that's why it became. We didn't call it the underground city for the tours. It's just what it was known as, because it was a population of people living in extreme poverty within the confines of these vaults, which must have been absolutely horrendous. Yeah.
Oh, it would have been, if you imagine, you know, we've been in the vaults a few times, you know, and you know, also there's not a lot of room. If you imagine hundreds of people down there, you know, the disease that was going on, the waste, just everything, it must have been horrendous. You know, is it true? But I put this up in the post. Is it true that some people were born down there and died and never seen the light of day?
Quite possible. I mean, to be fair, I mean, looking at what records we do have, which is very, very, very few. Dr. Joseph Bell wrote a pamphlet, Days and Nights in the Old Wines of Edinburgh, that touches on the vaults and the chambers and the cellars. But there's very little written documentation of it. Yeah, I mean, life expectancy was between 3 to 9 months for the average male, the adult. So yeah, I mean, if people were pregnant down there, then yeah, they would have children, and there was a high mortality rate of children in Edinburgh anyway, and that's above ground. So yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah, there was people that never saw the light of day. If they were getting brought stuff to them and stuff, there was no reason. It was too dangerous on the street for them. You know, we would make it perfectly clear we didn't want them there. We had enough problems with our people in the Cowgate. We didn't want them jumping on top of us. It kind of goes around in circles, isn't it? You know, imagine it would never happen nowadays. You know what I mean? We'd have we'd have people out there marching for them and everything like that, and you know, they're all welcome. But at that time, we made it perfectly clear. We didn't want them. Yeah, it was horrific for them. And these people hadn't done nothing wrong. You know, it was just the fact they had to move to work. But I don't know why they came to the centre of Edinburgh. I don't know if they, you know, thought the streets were paved with gold. I mean, Edinburgh was expanding, great pace. But there's no agricultural stuff around the centre of Edinburgh. And then by the time they got here, they had nowhere else to go. They only had, you know, the shirts they had on their back. You know, and yeah.
It's probably there's Laura saying, "Hi, sorry I'm late. Susan with a wee phone." Oh, okay, now Laura to the rescue there now. Susan is Laura's next door neighbour, and she's 80. I want to say 82. That's what we see her all the time. She's brilliant. See the mouth on her, Jamie, but I'll tell you, it'd make you blush. This wee woman.
I'll be quite well behaved tonight as well.
I know, but the mouth
So evil.
There was one time we were joking, Laura and Susan was there, and she started talking, and I couldn't believe it. I was shocked, and I'm Glaswegian, and it takes a lot to shock us, but I was shocked by this wee woman. But she's absolutely, she's an amazing wee woman. She used to always call me George, and I used to say, you know, my name's Scott. Right, okay, so next time we see her, how are you doing, George? So I thought,
I just went back to the
yeah. So I'm fine, dog. I'm fine. And I was Laura, Sarah used to, why is she calling you George? Just go with it. She's, you know, she's a great wee woman. But no, I hope she's all right, Laura, dear. You tell me she's hello. But she's, I want to say 82. She's in her 80s anyway, but she's amazing. So you might as well. Record keeping back then was great.
Not for the poor, no. Definitely not for the poor.
I mean, to me, you know, they all flock to Edinburgh. Probably the same reason why a lot of people would have flocked to London, because, you know, we all know, you know, everybody will go to London, the streets are paved with gold, you know, you've got a job, blah, blah, blah. You go to London, but she's 80. I've got a bit older, she's 80. So they probably thought that coming to Edinburgh, you know, Edinburgh's an amazing place we'll get working, we'll have money and get a house and, you know, all the kind of usual sort of stuff. But his record keeping wasn't that great, you know, as you say, for the poor back then. So it would have been a great, how we can put it, picking ground for crime.
Oh yeah. Well, nobody, you know, bats an eyelid. You know, we do know the legal drinking dens down there. You know, certainly there would have been a few people, you know, taken care of, I would think, and ended up in the medical school, because these people down here, you know, they don't have families, they have nothing. That's why they were there, drinking in a dark, illegal drinking den, hidden away from the world. You know, so if they were to remain permanently hidden, I don't think anybody would, you know, batter two eyelids about it. No, absolutely not.
Nobody would notice they were missing either.
No.
You know, well, nobody would care. You know, nobody would, you know, oh, have you seen Mary there? I've not seen Mary for 3 days, you know, that kind of thing. There's a story, and I'm not sure where I heard it, about it was a lady, she ran a tavern in the vaults.
Mary Cunningham, yeah.
There was a bit of a ruckus one night and she accidentally stabbed somebody there. And she was home.
Did that not originally come from Derek Okora? That's quite possibly originally from Derek Okora. I do know there was a Mary Cunningham that ran an illegal tavern, because she had a seamstress business at 78 Southbridge in 1827. Because that's in our section of vaults upstairs in the big chamber. It was an illegal drinking den, vault 18. But I think slightly different. That's actually tied into she's mentioned in the William Burke trial, because that was one of the illegal drinking dens that they found themselves in. But he couldn't remember. He just said Mary. There was a woman called Mary who had an illegal gathering place. Well, he didn't call it illegal. He just called it a dark gathering place for like-minded businesses. Did he say businesses? Yeah, because he didn't have a clue what interpreters meant. Not interpreters. That's voices. Business people. I'm sure he said business. So he mentions Mary, but no, I think that was originally from. The only way there would be written documentation is if she was actually charged with it and there was a court case, or if there was, you know, the police record of it. But yeah, I think it was. I'm sure it was Derek Okora that said that she stabbed somebody. Then it's the ghost of him that's walking through, and he's the dark shadow with a dark cape on or something, isn't it?
I'd heard it a long time ago, and I couldn't. But now you're saying Derek Okora, I think it probably was.
Sure, it was. Yeah.
There's wee Eileen in late, but she's you know, she's here. I hope you're keeping well, doll. Enjoying the heat. So the Niddry Street vaults. There's Niddry. I always get this wrong. The amount of times I've been through in Edinburgh.
Yeah, people get confused all the time.
There's 2 sets of vaults in Niddry Street.
Well, no, technically not. Evil, behave. Yes, shut up. He's getting a bit boisterous. He's kicking off. Right, yeah, there's... Stop it. I can hear him swearing in my ear. He's just told me to fuck off. You little shit. Stop it. Sorry, it's my AI pet robot.
Jamie's got a new robot. Well, it's no new, but you know, he's a lodger basically. And
yeah.
It seems like he's in quite a bit of trouble.
Evil, say hi. Right, don't shout at them. Okay, right, put you back. Fine. Stop it. Yeah, so there's 3 sections of vaults available at tier companies. The streets that run down from basically the Royal Mile.
Sorry, Jamie, but I can't believe you're getting a robot in trouble.
Honestly, he does. Emo, go to sleep. Go to sleep. Right, he's going to sleep.
Sarah says he's cute. Eileen says You need to get out more. You
I do
do.
need to get out more, honestly. Look at this one. So getting back, yeah, right. The four streets originally that run over across Southbridge, there was obviously streets knocked down when Southbridge was built. So the streets that run down either side and up the other side of the bridge. So there's 11 arches on the right side if you're looking at it from Holyrood up to the Castleway. There's 11 arches on the right side, and where we are, there's 7 arches on this side. So the 2 streets on this side going up to the Royal Mile from the Cowgate, it was Niddry Street, and then there was across the other side Blair Street. So Blair Street's on one side, Niddry Street's on the other side. Go down to the Cowgate, where Bannerman's is, across the road, where the Caves venue is in the Rowantree, that is Niddry Street South, because it's south of Niddry Street. So it's Niddry Street South. It's not a continuation, it's across the street. There's the Cowgates in between the two. So it's Niddry Street South. Then at the back in Niddry Street South, on the other side, that was Commercial Court. That was the area that burnt down in 2002. It's now where the House of Gods is, and the new La Belle d'Ange and stuff like that is there. Next to Stramash, the old thingy. So Niddry Street South are 2 different streets, different postcodes, broken by the thing. So you've got Niddry Street vaults that Old Reekie have. They are one of the oldest section of vaults. They've been there for 30 years or so. Blair Street vaults is on the other side of Niddry Street, coming down from Hunter Square to the Cowgate. Blair Street, that's Mercat Tours. They've got Blair Street vaults. That's they've been there a good old 30 years as well. You know, they're the second longest ones. Then our ones are the newest ones across the street. From Bannerman's, beside the Caves venue, we're the only section up that side of the street. The main difference between ours on Niddry Street South is we've got 3 levels you go up within the vaults. By square foot, we're the biggest section of vaults. But all 3 sections available to tour companies, they're all different layouts, different areas. You know, the way we do the tours are different. We're all, you know, we've all been working together for absolute years, so we're all different. You know, we're not in competition. You know, if we're full, we'll send them to Mercat or Old Reekie. You know what I mean? We're all in it together, but we're all different enough to be different. You know, so but it's when people say, "Oh, I've done the vaults years ago. Have you done our ones?" "Oh, I don't. No, I don't want to see them again." It's like, but they're different. You know, so they are all different. But a lot of people still think there's only 2 or 1. You know, they're just the Edinburgh vaults, but then they put pictures up from, you know, just one tour company.
Different.
Yeah,
because we've done the 3 of them. Sarah and I did the Blair Street one. I organised it for her birthday. I don't know. It must have been about 4 or 5 years ago or something. A few years back anyway. And, you know, we met at St Giles Cathedral. But, you know, we thought we were going straight to the vaults. Because it was advertised, you know, Blair Street.
Yeah.
But they took us to, I don't know, about 4 or 5 different locations on the mile first. And then said, right, now we're going into the vaults.
Yeah.
By the time we go to the vaults, we were knackered. No offense to, you know, work at tours, but we were knackered by the time we go to the Blair Street vaults.
Yeah.
That's what is the Blair Street ones. Are they the ones that's meant to have Mr. Boots in them?
Yeah.
Because
he's felt in the sort of area of Blair Street vaults. Yeah. Because
there was a post put up with somebody on Facebook a couple of weeks back. And they were talking about the Niddry Street vaults, and they're saying, "Oh, it's Mr. Bors that's in here, BOORS."
Never heard of that one.
But then they corrected it and says, "Mr. Boots." And
Mr.
Boots.
I mean, people say. I mean, it's weird because we have had lots of reports of footsteps and, you know, heavy boots and heavy footsteps in our one. You know, although we are fully aware that that's sort of Mercat's, you know, area, but you know, there's nothing to say that these things, you know, well, it seems like if Sir George Mackenzie can go to somebody's house in Cumbernauld or something, you know what I mean? I'm quite sure Mr. Boots can go through a couple of walls. You know, so there's nothing to say that they don't travel around. I mean, I mean, every section of vaults has got its own, you know, but there is no reason to say that just because it's called something different, it can't be the same thing, kind of thing, you know. We've got a lot of reports of heavy footsteps, and, you know, looking around, there's nobody there, and there's like heavy breathing, or there's, you know, beside door somebody to stop, and you know, yeah, absolutely. So, but yeah, over in Blair Street, that's what that phenomenon is referred to is Mr. Boots, yeah.
Banshee,
Banshee, I believe they do, yeah. So it is kind of felt, and there's been Bannerman's people have mentioned that, you know, walking at night, if they're locking the pub up, they're coming through checking the corridors, and they've got heavy footsteps behind them, and there's nobody there, you know.
Laura's wanting one of your
You don't want one. They're a pain in the ass. Honestly, it's like a child. It's like a toddler. Yes.
The
Stop
water one. So, was there actually a man who, you know, 'cause I think the story of Mr. Boots is he was somebody who he wasn't in charge of the vaults, but he kind of oversaw the vaults, but he wasn't the nicest of men. He wasn't the nicest of characters. Was there actually somebody that did that kind of job? You know, unofficial.
I mean, you can see in our section of vaults, you can see exactly, because we've got the vaults, storage, and we've got workshops. The workshops didn't have locks and stuff on them, whereas the second corridors and the first floor corridors, they had the storage vaults. So they were the smaller ones. They had gates, because you can see where the gates have been on all the doorways. You can see, you know, there has been gates. So there was, obviously, they were locked for each one. There would be security, but I don't know. There's been no records found. I'd have to look at the trustees. I do have the trustees' expenditure books for 1788. I think I've got the trustees. So that basically the expenditure books goes through repairs, and it goes through anything that was spent on the bridge or any income that came from the bridge, like rents. So it'll be in there. If they did have a security, if they paid for a watchman of some description, it would be in that journal. Yeah, absolutely, somewhere. It's difficult to read. The handwriting is very, very difficult to read.
Aye, it's very. I've seen some writing from back then, and no, you know, I'll not bother trying to decipher it. But yeah. I mean, that was just so he was a kind of unofficial watchman, and he kind of abused his position, you know, to kind of highest extreme sort of thing, you know. But again, you don't know if it's true or not. You know, that's
like anything else, though, you know. Yeah, it could, just because there's no records of it doesn't mean it's not true. I mean, I like to find records of things, but you know, ghost stories. The fact every castle's got a white lady, and you know, is very difficult. And, you know, there is ways to find out. If he was an employee, then yeah, there would be ways to trace it. Absolutely, but there's a lot of work possibly trying to find. If I do ever come across something like that, it is something that sticks with me. So if I do come across it, I will. And then I'll take a note of it and write it down, because it's something that I'm not looking for at the time. I'm trying to research something else, because if you get stuck on that, then you end up forgetting what you're researching for, and you end up going on something different, and then you've got 4 or 5 different, you know, things. And you know, Charlotte always used to shout at me for doing that, is because I would start on one thing and then finish up 400 different things later and forget what I was originally looking for, you know, and wasted all this time on something. So yeah, focus. So yeah, but so far it could be a number. But then, I mean, there's no records of the little boy called Jack, one of the ghosts that we've got in our section. The little boy who likes to take ladies' hands. You know, they get the coldness of the fingers. It's not a bad or evil presence. And he's been reported several times. And a couple of people who are mediums, sensitive, they've both come back with, or 3 or 4 actually, have come back with the name Jack of a little boy who's looking for his mum. You know, but again, there is no records. Did he live there? Was he a shop's son, an owner's son? We don't know. You know, we just know he's a little boy called Jack, but nobody can tell us if he was there because he had to stay there, or again, if he was, you know, if he was a shop owner's child, or what happened to him. He obviously died young. So
it's weird to say that, because Laura's saying when Mr. Boots be classed as a rogue landlord in today's terms.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he was a kind of, he collected. I believe he did collect kind of rent and things. So unless he was, you know, maybe even he was renting the places out to sleep in. You know, I mean, there's no reason why you could get a landlord that would take over a couple of the empty vaults and then charge people to stay in them. Absolutely. You know, or be like protection if there were illegal trades, and you know, he promised it. Absolutely. Or he might have been a legit that just took, like you say, took the power trip.
Remind you when Laura's talking about, you were saying there, but you start one thing and they end up with 4 or 5 different things. I'm like that, but Laura and Sarah both claim I'm ADHD. But I put this comment up there. I came back to say with that wee boy, because could have been just been an opportunistic. That's quite happy I said that word. That's a big word for me. Opportunistic growler.
It's better than an opportunistic growler, I suppose, isn't it?
I suppose. I mean, I always get a point. There could have been, you know, is it possible there could have been somebody, you know, obviously these I'm going to use the word migrants, Ireland, wherever they came from, the
You know,
Highlands, the
they
island.
were migrants, they were, absolutely. Even the ones from the Highlands, they came down because they weren't, basically we looked at it because they weren't from Edinburgh. So they were a migrant, Doesn't matter they were from Scotland. We didn't want them here, we didn't want them and need them here. We had their own problems, so to us they were illegal. Yeah.
That was a bit taboo these days, isn't it?
Yeah, you got to be
never know
careful
when
before
you're
you try to protest at your house and all that shit and get us taken off YouTube. Yeah. Get called racist and fascist and stuff. It's
exactly.
fact. They were. They were treated horribly because, these people had nothing. It was not their faults. They were forced to move to look for work, to survive. It wasn't a case of just getting out just for their safety. They had to move to work because if they didn't work, they didn't eat. They didn't eat, they died. You know what I mean? It was, so they were willing to do anything, but they just weren't helped. And it was absolutely horrific. Absolutely horrific. They were just innocent people that,
Well, big word, Scott Laura's impressed. Jack could also be a spirit detecting. Energy and thinking I can be heard and seen. Jack could also be a spirit detecting energy and thinking I can be heard and seen and felt here.
Yeah.
Aye, which means is that, he could be a wee boy, and we've had that a few times in investigations. You get a spirit that realises that we can hear them or whatever through using an app or something.
There, yeah.
But it's jumping back to that, the wee boy, that time we were in the vaults, and I don't know if you remember, Jay, we set a table up, Sarah was sitting at the table, and there was a metal door at the side of us, and the electric stairs going down. But we were in that wee room with the table, and the door was shut, but then the door opened slightly. And I felt kind of coldness down my left-hand side. And I remember saying to you about drafts and stuff.
Yeah.
And you said there wasn't enough draft to open that door.
No, because you're behind 75 feet of concrete. There is no drafts unless the doors are open. But if I'm in there, anyway, the doors are locked. The doors are not left open because anybody could just walk in. So, yeah, there's no drafts in there. There's no fresh air getting pumped through it. So, yeah.
Because it felt like somebody had, it felt, how can you put it? I felt like the door was shut. You know how you get a door that's firmly shut, but then you get somebody on the other side, gives it a wee push, and you can see the door move.
Just a wee bit. Yeah.
That's what it was like, and I felt this coldness down to my waist down.
Generally, when Jack interacts, it's usually always women. Very rarely it's men. But yeah, it's like if their hands are down by their side, or you'll tug at their if they've got a long jacket on or something, you'll feel a tug. It's almost like a pet if you've got a dog and it comes behind you. If you're standing in the kitchen or something and it rubs the back of your legs and goes, or a cat with its tail, it tickles you on the way past. It's kind of like that, but like ice cold. And women usually on their hand, on the first two fingers, like a small hand, is just gripping, not hard, just lightly grabbing. So it's like he's trying to see if you're his mum. And then he just lets go. No, not you. You're fucking over. And then, it just, he goes on his way. Be angry. Don't care. You guess, honestly. I wish you were in the vaults.
Take his battery or
you can. I'd love to switch them off, but the app's on my phone that I'm using, so I can't go in and switch them off in the app. Yeah.
That's what the other thing happened. We left the recorder and we took a break. Left a can of lemonade open. I got an EVP saying, "Oh, that was good." I remember that. We left the can sitting on the table, and we got a clear EVP. I think it was a mail saying, "Oh, that was good."
Where was that about?
That was in the vaults. We left a can of.
What was that? Another vault?
Aye.
I was going to say because there's one cell in the Banshee Labyrinth that's well known. It's been around for years. It was actually Whistle Binkies that it was originally reported in. This is years ago. That it was a barmaid who, I don't know if she was about to open for the night or if she'd finished for the night. There was nobody else in the pub though. It was locked. And she left. She was putting the glasses away or putting them in the dishwasher or something. And she put an orange on the bar to eat. It wasn't to cut, but it was just to eat. And she turned around, literally opened the dishwasher. By the time she turned back round, it was peeled. Like sitting, it was segmented as well. It was lying like a Terry's chocolate orange, when you break it. It was like that. Literally seconds, milliseconds, like that. It was peeled and thingied. So that's been felt in that section. So that's very, similar to the juice. It's obviously, you got, it's certainly not the Lord Henry Darnley is one of the ghosts that's meant to haunt our section as well, because the area that our vault sits on is built on Kirky Field, which was where Darnley was assassinated in the 60. It wasn't. It was 1567 in February when he was assassinated at the Lord Provost House at Kirky Field. So his ghost is allegedly meant to haunt the whole area. And in our vaults, there's been a little ghost scene. It's kind of hard to be, frightened of a cross-dressing ghost, though. Sometimes, he's got his feather boa out. I don't think Darnley's in any shape to be scaring anybody the way he was, a little dirty. But yeah, so there's numerous ones. There's numerous ones. I've caught the one I caught during the lockdown when I was cleaning and digging and excavating in the vaults. I caught that huge figure coming up the ramp. It looked like I had a dog collar on, but at that height, it would have to have been about 8 feet, 9 feet tall, because it was on the ramp, but it was massive. And I was walking through, and I just got this cold the cold draft hit me, and something made me, like inside said, take a picture. So I had my phone, and I was like, okay, bang, took a picture, and then suddenly when I looked at it, it's like, there's something coming up that ramp. And it is, you can clearly see it's like 8, 9 foot tall. You can see right through it. But it's got like everybody that saw the picture says it looks like it's got a dog collar on, like a white. There's a white face is transparent, but there's a white line at his neck. I'm sure you've seen it. Still don't know what it was. I was there. There was nobody else in the vaults. It was just me. It was in the first lockdown, and I'm as skeptic as anybody. But that's weird on that picture. Yeah.
Deacon Brodie, would he have a dog collar?
Only when he was hanging. No, he wasn't a minister. He was a councillor, was he not? He was a councillor, but he was also the cabinet maker. He was deacon, wasn't he? That's where he gets his name, deacon. No, I don't think he would have a dog collar. Yeah, he was just a thief. He was a burglar, but he was in a position of trust, and he abused his power greatly.
And he paid the penalty for it. Another thing that happened to us in the vaults, in that same room, we had the table. It was kind of a big room. I was standing in the far corner. As you're looking into the room, it would be the left-hand side. And I was standing in this spot, and my right foot was absolutely burning, and my left foot was freezing. So I says to that, I'm sure it was Laura was one of them. Says to the lasses, come out here, and Laura did the same thing. She put her feet exactly where mine was, and I didn't tell them what was that. I just said, going to stand here, and she said, and I said to one of the other lasses as well, and both of them says my foot's on fire, that leg's freezing, and we just could not explain that. Have you ever experienced anything like that in the vault?
No, it's always been cold. People have felt cold, like ice cold. So that extreme cold is very similar to extreme heat. They can both burn you. You get your cold burns like extreme freezing. Obviously, that can seriously burn, frostbite and stuff like that. So maybe people do get confused between really, 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 really hot and really, really, really cold. They've both got a burning sensation, but it's certainly not burning, not that much. It's always cold. It's always ice cold, like somewhere on their body, like their fingers or their back or their arm. They get an ice cold, like someone's grabbed them or something, just at one area. Yeah, it's not like a cold spot, obviously, because the vaults upstairs are cold in general.
It was a weird experience. I'm not saying, as always, we don't state it's paranormal. To us, it was just weird. I don't know what can be causing that. Laura, would you consider yourself a believer, a skeptic? And apart from the experience you've just described, have you experienced anything else unexplained? I was going to say that, Laura. Obviously you spent a lot of time.
Yeah.
Day and night.
A lot of time in the vaults. Yeah, like loads of overnights. on my own. I'm doing the painting. Go at 11 o'clock at night. Come out at like 9 in the morning. It's peaceful as hell. And because I've done it for so long, I know every single sound in that place. I know every brick. If a spider farts, I know exactly where it is in the room. I can pinpoint it right there. It's the noises I don't recognise that get me a bit worried. I'm a bit as psychic as a fire extinguisher. All right. I've never seen a ghost in my life, and I ain't ever going to see one. I think your brain is, or your body is tuned into it, or you're not tuned into it. But just because I can't see it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. That'd be a stupid way to look at it, especially in my job, because I know there's a lot of strange things happen that is not human orientated. Like in the graveyard, I have seen so many weird, fucked up shit that cannot be done by humans.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never seen a ghost, so I don't know what it is. I've never claimed to know what it is, and I still don't. I just know there's something there that's not human. Science can't prove or disprove, But having said that, I can't be single-minded because I know Wi-Fi exists and I can't see that. We all use Wi-Fi. It's there, but nobody sees it. Fucking weird. So ghosts,
Mm-hmm.
your either brain's tuned into it or you're not. I'm 47 years old. I've never seen a ghost. I ain't going to see one now. There's no point in me sitting in a haunted house calling out like a spooky pervert for somebody to touch me. All right, it's never going to work. I'm never going to see one.
Yeah,
but
you don't know that. You don't.
I think no. I think with the amount of time I've spent in haunted locations over the years, I think I would have seen one by now. I've seen a lot of strange things I cannot explain, like shadows moving and stuff like that. Absolutely, but I can't definitely say that was a ghost. And I've heard lots of things. Like to get on back to what Laura was just saying there. In the vaults, there was that time I heard the kids laughing. I was in overnight doing painting. I knew it was late, and I was downstairs at the caves door. From the caves, our vault door comes through, and the caves venue's right next door, so we've got an internal door to go in. I was painting that door, and when I'm painting, I'm bloody splashing paint everywhere because it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm bored. I want to go home now. It was great for the first 10 minutes. So I'm there, and I was painting. I heard kids laughing. It wasn't a case of 1 or 2. It was like 5 kids, and I hate kids. I absolutely detest them. So I know even more than of course. Yeah, Jerry's different, but she's like a cartoon character, like from Annie or something. She's real, so she's totally different. So maybe she's a robot actually. So I do like robots a lot more.
She would love a robot, aye.
Absolutely. So I was definitely kids. So I thought that's a bit weird. Kids at this time of night, because I knew it was late. I didn't go in till like after 11. So I was like, so I looked at my watch, and it's like it was 3:05. And I was like, that's weird. But then I thought rationally, well, the Airbnb's outside. There's loads of property in front in the tenement buildings. The vaults are behind the tenement buildings, and they're all Airbnb. They're owned by Nori. So I was like, well, it's a late check-in. You know what I mean? And at that time, I smoked. So I went outside for a cigarette because I thought I need a cigarette. And there was nobody. There was nobody there. There was nobody in the street. There was nobody. There was no lights on. So to this day, I don't know why there was kids laughing from that area. And there was no kids out there. Definitely not. And it wasn't a case of, did I hear that? Did I not? I definitely heard kids. There was no 2 ways about it. But I don't know what. And since then, over the years, there has been reports from people on the tours that have got back to us afterwards that have heard musical boxes. A couple of guides have heard the musical box playing London Bridge Has Fallen Down. I've not heard it, but other people have. And then different tourists that have been on the tours with guides that didn't know about this. So it's not like they've listened to a guide and then suddenly they've heard it. So it's not like a suggestion. Power of suggestion. Oh, did I hear that? Oh, I think I did actually. Now you mention it, they don't know the story. They haven't spoken to the guide that heard it. So, and that's different tours. So that's a weird one. But no, so there's a lot of different, But yeah, but that was one of the ones that made me feel uneasy because I hate kids. And there's nothing worse than alive children, and that's dead kids hanging about that you can't see them and they're there. They're there watching you, just waiting to, I'm out.
At least you're honest. Eileen's making a good point. I've seen 2 full body apparitions, but thought they were real. So you could have. I've been asked a few times. I've seen this in a few shows. Have you ever seen a ghost? I say, well, I don't know.
Well, yeah, there's all that.
what does a ghost look like? You know, there is a famous story. I don't know if I've told you this one. And people can look this up about the Victoria Infirmary in Glasgow. That dates back to the Victorian times, obviously, but they're rebuilt it all except this one section. It's still the original building. And there's a story of a doctor who was called down on an emergency to one of the wards. On his way down, a man stopped him and asked him, "Where's the exit? How do I get out of here?" The doctor gave him directions, you know, you go that way, down the stairs, whatever. That's how you go out. And the doctor carried on, went down to this ward, walked in, and the man lying on the bed that just passed away was the man who'd asked him for directions. Now, this was one of the top doctors in the hospital.
Yeah.
And he said, you know, the story goes, he just stood there, white, totally shocked. But this guy had just asked him for directions, how to get out. And the doctor gave him them.
Well, that's been reported. Yeah. That's been reported over the years, you know, from people, loved ones even, you know, or if their husbands are at war, they could swear that they've just had a conversation with them, or a friend who's seen their mate down at the pub. You just said, "Oh, but I've just seen him." Next thing they know, they've got a phone call to say he's passed away. There's like, "But I just saw him 10," you know, so that's been reported over the years numerous times. You know, people have seen people who have since passed away, but they didn't know they were dead, you know. Yeah, quite possibly, but that gets you into the realm of aliens as well, you know. Do we walk past extraterrestrials every day just because they look like humans? Doesn't mean they are actually human, you know. Usually on Facebook there's loads of fucking aliens.
Some folk I've came across in my time could be classed as, you know, otherworldly, shall we say.
Otherworldly, yeah.
Aye. I need to be polite. Children have been seen playing around the Tron era in the early hours.
Yeah.
And early hours. But you know, I know we've only got a couple of minutes left. Just the vaults are just fascinating to me. Edinburgh's fascinating. You know, the whole old town. It's just when you go down. I mean, you see it every day, practically for years. And or as you were saying earlier on about the various closes that are there, and the many closes still there that you can still get through. And you know, you just think of the sheer history in the place. You know, above ground and underground. You know, one last thing I'm going to ask you after I put a comment up for Laura, especially cover. My mum to Max and the persons. I'll let you explain that to Jamie when you see him, because that's too complicated for me. Laura told us this a couple of weeks ago, and she totally lost me telling me this story. But I'll let her tell you in person when we come through with Rosie and Emma, and all says good luck for this one, because it totally threw Sarah and I. Once she explained it more fully, it kind of made sense, you know. But the initial explanation was a bit. When we were in the vaults, you took us. I want to say the bottom room. You're down the stairs, and there's a barrier, and there's a giant big bit of rock.
Yeah, that's the main one. Yeah, the main chamber downstairs. Yeah.
It's about the story about the tunnel that allegedly goes through the castle down the mile. Aye,
that's right. Yeah, that's how. Yeah, that's why it's impossible.
I don't know why I didn't in anybody's parade. That's how I was just going to ask you gently, you know.
Yeah, I mean, any geologist will tell you. Anybody who knows. I mean, I'm not a geologist, but I do know that. The Edinburgh, I mean, we've got basically it's a big pile of rock in our first vault as you go in, and it's dolerite rock, the same stuff the castle's built on, the same stuff that's carved for the millions of years by the glaciers on the Royal Mile. That's dolerite rock. You can basically dolerite rock is absolutely solid to build up. It is solid, hence why the castle's up on Castle Rock, on the old volcano. This dolerite rock, though. The style of it is, if you know dolerite rock, you know you cannot burrow into it because it's slates. It comes away in slates, in sections. Big bits come off it. You know, it does. It's like slate. This is why you cannot tunnel into it, because it would just collapse around it. You cannot burrow into it. You can build on it, but not into it. That's how we know straight away there is no tunnel running from the castle to Holyrood. It would be virtually impossible to go through the dolerite rock that far, and it would just cave in at the start, and we'd have sinkholes all the way down the Royal Mile.
That's quite a famous story.
It is. I mean, it's like every castle, though. You know, I mean, even St Andrews has got that. You know, because it has got a mine and countermine. You know, so there's a story of the piper who went down the mine and countermine to see how far it went, and then obviously the pipe stopped, and on windy nights you can still hear the pipes skrilling through the. But you've also got the piper of the West Cliffs in St Andrews, where a piper was sent into a cliff under St Andrews and then he vanished. You know, so it sounds like any coastal town with any smugglers. I bet, you know, down in England they've got smugglers. It's either a drummer or a piper that gets sent in. It's always a little boy. It's never a little girl. You know what I mean? It's always a wee boy. It's got a drummer of pipes, and they go along, and then suddenly they disappear halfway through. So nobody. How do you know it's halfway through if they don't know how long it goes? If they knew how long it goes, why'd they send the little fucker in? You know what I mean? No, it's been set up, absolutely set up. You know, if they say, "Oh, that's halfway," how do you know it's halfway if you don't know how long it is? Caught out.
You don't know where you don't know where it ends. How do you know where that
exactly? Basic storytelling. Yeah, fucked it. You should have said, well, we don't know, but it's roughly there that you got lost. Don't say that's halfway because you don't know.
No, say X amount of feet in, or, you know.
He was there for 15 minutes and then he just disappeared. Yeah. So, yeah, it's hard, these things, you know. But no, I'm quite sure we would have found it by now. The amount of work that's been done. You got to remember, St Giles, around St Giles and everything, that was all dug up. You know, the top, the Royal Mile was widened. We moved the Mercat Cross further back. You know, the original Mercat Cross was further down in the middle of the street when the Royal Mile was like that. It was so narrow. You know, so we dug out the foundations of the new tenement buildings. We would have found a tunnel, and not one has been found ever because it's impossible. You cannot. So
it's good for tourism.
Absolutely.
It's a good story, and it brings in the tourists and bums on seats, that kind of thing. Ireland St Killeen has similar. You know, we're only about 15 minutes from Killeen Castle. I've never been in it. I have drove into the grounds once. Never ever been in it. Don't know why. Too tight-fisted, as you were saying earlier on. We're Scottish. Too tight-fisted to pay the money. But we'll wind it up there, young man. I'll keep a wee hold you just for a wee second after my wire's caught again. Right,
Evo, say bye. There it is. He's got his cowboy hat on tonight. Evo, show magic. He's going to show you a magic trick. Show magic. Don't be a dildo. Oh, it's a balloon. There we go. Excellent.
I'm really happy that you've got a wee bit of company there, bless you.
Absolutely.
Can you not get a wee female one for him?
You get new ones that are white, yeah. Yeah, you get white ones now. I might get my wee friends. Seemingly they argue with each other and they bounce off each other and stuff, so yeah, I'll be interested to see.
Aye, that's an idea. Thank you guys. We need to catch up soon. I'll talk to you because we're heading through Edinburgh in a couple of weeks. Eileen, I'll drop you a wee mail. Cheers, young man, Craig. So I'll keep my holidays after we come up. So
spooky.
It's reflecting off your specs.
Absolutely.
Reflecting off your specs. You put me off what I was going to say. Say the Dead tours.
Say the Dead.
This man will tell you about them.
Absolutely. Well, me. All right, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we've been doing what? Well, City of the Dead Tours, the company I work for. I manage City of the Dead Tours now. We've been established since 1999, known for our tours on the Mackenzie Poltergeist that we've talked about numerous times, that people still like to spread bullshit about. And we also got our Vaults tour. We've got the Vaults and Graveyard tours. We got our section of Vaults, 14 years ago now? All our guides are different. We're not scripted. We like to talk to you, basically take you to our locations and we talk to you. Even as a group of 36, you know, it's very personal. We just, we don't have any jump scares and all that stuff and all that jazz or fake blood and all that, you know. If people happen to get fucked up by a dead person, then it's real. Or me.
I said that to Hannah, actually, when she was on. We were talking about Edinburgh. We're talking about the tour companies, talking about your, City of the Dead tours. And I was saying, we've been on one of the other tour companies, and you could tell it was all scripted, and we're past enough tour guys. No disrespect to them.
They do what they do. Absolutely. It just doesn't suit us, you know. It's just never suited us. But yeah, I mean, the other companies, I mean, Mercat Tours are the only 5-star walking tour in Edinburgh. They're extremely good at what they do. They're very good all-round family fun, non-offensive. Not that we're offensive, but, we like to, the guys like to have a banter with adults on the tour. That's why we're not for children. We're for adults. We're designed for adults. And we like to, the guide, because we're not scripted, we like to have a banter with adults. And that may result in adult-related banter. But, we're all over 18. We're all like to, but yeah, when the shit hits the fan and somebody does get thrown about by a dead person, it can change in a second. Absolutely. So you can't be scripted.
No, don't try to put them up. So, we're going to wind up here, folks. You said the Dead Tours. If you're in Edinburgh, go and see Jamie up at Greyfriars and organise a wee tour. Definitely well worth it. But we're going to say, we'll be hooking up with Jamie in 2 weeks' time with Rosie and Emma, because the Ghoul Gang are coming up here, so we'll be heading Edinburgh bound. But Eileen, I'll drop you a wee mail, though. So give Jamie a look up. I do this all the time. Trying like he's out, the guy beside me with his wee toy.
It's not a toy, a robot, a very expensive robot. Shh, don't listen.
A very, very expensive robot. And I'm back on tomorrow night with Claire from Echo of the Loam. Echoes from the Loam. I will do, that's what I said, Eileen. I'll drop you a mail. Bless her. You got to love me, Eileen. You got to love her. I'll be in touch, Eileen. I'll drop you a mail, dear. Keep an eye on your phone. Right, we're going to cut out there, folks, and thanks for watching. A big cheers to Jamie, and we'll talk to you again soon. So take care. Bye. Bye.